Satchidanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dandvatitam Gagan Sadrisham Tattvamasiadilakshayam Ekam Nityam Vimlamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavadeetam Trigunaраhitam Sadguru Tam Namah. Shalom friends, today we will take 18th chapter of third book of your Vasishtha on creation, that is Utpatti Khanda, and here we are on the story of Leela and Saraswati. And here in 18th chapter, Leela wonders which world is real. Leela said, I have much consolation in you, and now will I console my sorrowing heart? So saying, she made a sign for the assembly to break and rose from her royal seat. She entered the inner apartment and sat by the side of the dead body of her lord, hidden under the heap of flowers, and began to reflect within herself. She thought, oh, the wonderful magic that presents these people of my palace, situated in the same manner outside myself as I saw them seated within me in my meditation. Oh, how great is the extent of this delusion that contains the same high hills and the same spacious forests of palm and hintala trees, situated both outside and within me. Like a mirror shows the reflection of hills within itself as they are without it. So the reflector of the intellect presents the whole creations inwardly as it is outside of itself. I must now invoke the goddess of wisdom to determine which of these is illusion and which the sober and certain reality. So thinking, she worshipped and invoked the goddess and immediately saw Saraswati in the form of the Virgin. She made the goddess sit on an elevated seat, and having seated herself low upon the ground before her, asked that divine power to tell her the truth. Leela said, be gracious, O goddess, and clear this doubt of your suppliant, for it is your wisdom that first framed this beautiful system of the universe and knows the truth. Tell me, O great goddess, about what I am now going to relate you, for it is by your favor alone that I may be successful to know it. I saw the pattern of this world in the intellect, which is more transparent than the ethereal sphere, and so extensive that it contains millions and millions of miles in its small space. No definite words can express what is known as the calm, cool, and indescribable light. This is called unintelligible intelligence and is without any cover or support. It exhibits the reflections of space and the course of time, and those of the sky and its light, and the course of events concentrating in itself. Thus, the images of the worlds are to be seen both within and outside the intellect, and it is hard to distinguish the real and unreal ones between them. The goddess asked, tell me, fair maiden, what is the nature of the real world, and what do you mean by its unreality? Leela replied, I know the real is where I find myself sitting here and looking upon you as seated in this place. What I mean by unreal is the state in which I saw my husband in the ethereal region some time ago, because emptiness has no limit of time or place in it. The goddess replied, real creation cannot produce an unreal figure. A similar cause cannot produce a dissimilar effect. Leela replied, but O goddess, we often see dissimilar effects produced from similar causes. The earth and the earthen pot are similar in substance, yet one melts in water and other holds water. The goddess said, yes, when an act is done by the aid of auxiliary means, there the effect is found to be somewhat different from the primary cause. Thus, the earthen pot being produced by the auxiliary appliances of fire, the potter's wheel and the like differs in its quality from the original clay. Say, O beautiful maiden, what were the causes of your husband being born in this earth? The same led to his birth in the other world also. When the soul has fled from here, how can the material earth follow him? And what auxiliary causes can there be in connection with this cause? Whenever there is a contributing cause in addition to the apparent cause, everyone usually attributes the results to some unknown prior cause or motive. Leela said, I think, O goddess, that the expansion of my husband's memory caused of his regeneration, because it is certain that memory is the cause of the reproduction of objects before us. The goddess replied that memory is an aerial substance and its production are as unsubstantial as itself. Leela said, yes, I find memory to be an airy thing, and its reproduction of my husband and all other things within me are only empty shadows in the mind. The goddess replied, therefore, your husband and all those other things that appear to your sight in your reverie truly were such reproductions, my daughter. And so is the appearance of all things I see in this world. Leela said, tell me, goddess, in order to remove my conception of the reality of the world, how the false appearance of my formless Lord was produced before me by the unreal world. Are you getting the point? The goddess replied, as this illusionary world appeared a reality to you before you had memories of it, so you must know that all this is unreal from what I am going to relate to you. Saraswati speaking. In some part of the sphere of consciousness, there is the great fabric of the world, with the glassy vault of the firmament for its roof on all sides. Mount Meru is its pillar, surrounded by the regents of the 10 sides, like the statues carved upon it. The 14 regions are like so many apartments of it, and the hollow vault containing the three worlds is lighted by the lamp of the luminous sun. Its corners are inhabited by living creatures resembling ants. They are surrounded by mountains appearing as ant hills in the sight of Brahma, the prime lord of creatures and the primeval patriarch of many races of men. All animal beings are like worms confined in cocoons of their own making. The blue skies above regions are so many apartments of it, and the hollow vault containing the three worlds is lighted by the lamp of the luminous sun. Its corners are inhabited by living creatures resembling ants. They are surrounded by mountains appearing as anthills in the sight of Brahma, the prime lord of creatures and the primeval patriarch of many races of men. All animal beings are like worms. Worms confined in cocoons of their own making. The blue skies above and below are like the suit of this house, beset by bodies of departed spirits resembling group of gnats buzzing in the air. The fleeting clouds are the smoke of this house, or like spider webs in its corner, and the hollow air is full of aerial spirits, like holes of bamboos filled with flies. There are also the playful spirits of god and demigods hovering over human houses like swarms of busy buzzing bees about vessels of honey. Here and there, amidst the cavity of heaven, earth, and the infernal regions, lay tracts of land well watered by rivers, lakes, and the sea on all sides. In a corner of this land was a secluded piece of ground, sheltered by hills and crags about it. In this secluded spot, sheltered by hills, rivers, and forests, there lived a holy Brahman man with his wife and children, free from disease and care of gain and fear of a ruler. He passed his days in his fire worship and hospitality with the produce of his cattle and lands. So chapter 18 rests here, and chapter 19, the story of a former Vasishtha and Arundhati, starts from here. Will Vasishji relating the story of Leela Saraswati. Saraswati is speaking to Leela. In his age and attire, in his learning and wealth, and in all his actions and pursuits, this holy man was equal to his namesake except in his profession, because by profession he was priest to the royal family. His name was Vasishtha. His wife was Arundhati, fair as the moon, and like the star of the same name, visible from earth. She resembled her namesake, the priestess of the solar race, in her virtues and parts, and in all other things, except in her soul and body. She passed her time in true love and affection in the company of her husband, and she was his all in the world. With her sweet voice, smiling face, resembling a kumud flower. Once, this holy man had been sitting under the shady sarala tree on the tableland of his native hill when he saw the ruler of the land passing below with his gaudy train. He was accompanied by all the members of the royal family and his troops and soldiers. They were going to hunt with a clamor that resounded in the hills and forests. The white flapper fans shed a stream of moonlight. The lifted banners appeared like a moving forest, and the white umbrellas made a canopy of the sky. The air was filled with dust raised by the horses' hoofs and the lines of elephants with their high pavilion saddles seemed like moving towers that protected them from the heat of the sun and the hot winds. The loud uproar of the party, resembling the roaring of a whirlpool, made wild animals run on all sides. Shining gems and jewels were flashing all about on the bodies in the party. The holy man saw this procession and thought to himself, "Oh, how charming is royalty, filled with such splendor and prosperity. Ah, how shall I become the monarch of all the 10 sides and have such a retinue of horse, elephants, and foot soldiers with a similar train of flags, flappers, and blazing umbrellas? When will the breeze gently blow the fragrance of kund flowers and the powdered dust of lotuses to my bedchamber to lull me and my consorts to sleep?" When shall I adorn the faces of my chamber maids with the camphor and sandal paste, and enlighten the faces of the four quarters with my fair fame, like the moonbeams decorate the night? With these thoughts, the holy man determined that for the rest of his life he would apply himself vigilantly to the rigid austerities of his religion. At last he was overtaken by infirmities which shattered his body like the sleets of snowball batter the blooming lotuses in the lake. Seeing his approaching death, his faithful wife was fading away with fear, like a vine withers at the departure of spring for fear of the summer heat. Arundhati then began to worship me as you yourself have, in order to obtain the boon of immortality, which is hard to be had. She prayed, Ordain, O goddess, that the spirit of my lord may not depart from this tomb. After his death, I granted her request. So, Leela was not the first to make such a request to Ma Saraswati. Arundhati too made the same kind of request to her. After some time, Vasishtha, the holy man, died, and his empty spirit remained in the emptiness of that home. By virtue of the excessive desire and merit of acts in his former state of existence, this aerial spirit of the holy man assumed the shape of a mighty man on earth. He became the victorious monarch of the three realms. By his might, he subjugated the surface of the earth. By his valor, he conquered the high mountains of the gods. By his kind protection, the Netherlands were under his sway. He was like a raging fire to the forest of his enemies, and like the steadfast Mount Meru, amidst the rushing winds of business on all sides. He was like the sun expanding the lotus-like hearts of the virtues. To the eyes of women, he was like the god Kama. He was the model of all learning and the all-giving, wish-fulfilling tree to his suitors. He was the footstool of great scholars. He was like the full moon, shedding ambrosial beams of enlightened rule all round. But after the holy Brahmin had died and his dead body had disappeared into the forms of elementary particles in air, and his airy spirit had rested in the aerial intellectual soul within the empty space of his house, his holy Brahmin widow Arundhati was spinning away in her sorrow, and her heart was rent in twain like a dried pea pod. She became a dead body like her husband. Her spirit, by shuffling off its mortal coil, resumed its, resumed its subtle and immortal form, in which it met the departed ghost of her husband. She advanced to her lord as rapidly as a river runs to meet the sea below its level. She was as cheerful to join him as a cluster of flowers inhale the spring air. The houses, lands, and all the immovable properties and movable riches of this holy Brahman Vasishtha still exist in that rocky village, and it has been only 8 days since the soul of this loving pair was reunited in the hollow vault of their house. And here the chapter 19 also ends. In the chapter 20, Saraswati explains Leela's former life as Arundhati. Saraswati said to Leela that Brahman, whom I described before, the one who became a monarch on earth, is the same as your husband. His wife Arundhati is no other than yourself, the best of women. You two are the same pair now, reigning over this realm, resembling a pair of doves in your nuptial nuptial love, and the god Shiva and Parvati in your might. I have related your past lives to you so that you may know the individual soul to be only here, and that knowledge of its reality is an error. False knowledge casts its reflection on consciousness and causes error also. This makes you doubtful of the truth and untruth of the two states of the material and intellectual worlds. Therefore, the question which is true and which is untrue has no better answer than that all creations are equally false and unsubstantial. Vashishtha said, hearing these words of the goddess, Leela was confused in her mind, and with her eyes staring with wonder, she addressed her softly. Leela said, how is it, O goddess, that your words are so incoherent with truth? You make us the same as the Brahman couple who are in their own house. We are sitting here in our palace. How is it possible that the small space of the room in which my husband's body is lying could contain those spacious lands and hills and the 10 sides of the sky? It is as impossible as confining an elephant in a, in a mustard seed or a gnat fighting with a body of lions in a nutshell. It is as incredible as to believe a lotus seed containing a hill, or to be devoured by a little bee, or that peacocks are dancing hearing the roaring of clouds in a dream. O great goddess of gods, it is equally improbably to say that this earth, with all its mountain and other things, is contained within the small space of a sleeping room. Therefore, O goddess, please explain this mystery clearly to me, because it is by your favor only that the learned are cleared of their questions. The goddess Saraswati said, hear me, fair maiden, I did not tell you a lie. Transgression of the law is a thing unknown to us. The law is nanritam vadeta, never tell an untruth. It is I whom establish the law when others are about to break it. If I should slight the law, who else is there who would observe it? The individual soul of the village Brahman saw within itself and in his own house the image of this great kingdom, just as his departed spirit now sees the same in its empty world. Therefore, both these states are equally ideal. After death, you lose the memories of your former lives, just like one loses memories of waking events when in the dream state. All are like the appearance of the three worlds in a dream, or their formation in the imagination, or like the description of warfare in an epic poem, or like water in the mirage of a sandy desert. The hills and houses seen in the empty space of the Brahman's house were nothing but the capacity of his own mind to form the images of its fancy and receive the external impressions like a reflecting mirror. All these, though unreal, appear as real substances on account of the reality of consciousness, which is seated in the cavity of the innermost sheath of the body and reflect the images. But these images, derived from the memories of unreal objects of the world, are as unreal as those objects which cast their reflections upon consciousness. Waves rising in the river of a mirage are as unreal as the mirage itself. Know that this chair sitting in this room of your house, as well as myself and yourself, and everything else about us, are only the reflections of our consciousness, without which nothing would be perceptible. Our dreams and fallacies, our desires and fancies, and also our notions and ideas serves as the best evidence to understand this truth. that nothing is true beside the subjective mind, which creates and forms, produces and presents all objects to our view. The spirit of the Brahman resided in the emptiness of his house, with the seas, forest, and earth within itself, like a bee lives in the lotus. Thus, the habitable earth, with everything it contains, is situated in a small cell in one corner of their consciousness, like a spot of flimsy cloud in the sky. The house of the holy Brahmin was situated in the same locality of consciousness which contains all the worlds in one of its atomic particles. Every atom of the intelligent soul contains unnumbered worlds within worlds, enough to remove your doubt of the Brahmin being able to see an entire kingdom within the space of his intellect. Leela asked, how can we be the Brahman couple when they died only 8 days before, and we have been reigning here for so many years? The goddess replied, in reality, there is neither any limit of space or time, nor any distance of place or length of time. Hear me now tell you the reason why. As the universe is the reflection of the divine mind, so are infinity and eternity but representations of himself. Listen to what I tell you about how we form the idea of time and its subdivisions, whether a moment or an age. It is the same way that we make distinction among the individuals that are me, you, and this or that person. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's truly wonderful concept. It is being said that just like our mind differentiates between persons, it is differentiating the time and space as well. As soon as one feels the lack of the senses after his death, he forgets his former nature and thinks himself to be another being. Then, in the twinkling of an eye, he assumes an empty form in the womb of emptiness, and in that container he thinks within himself, this is my body with its hands and feet. Thinking about body, he finds it presented before him. Then he thinks in himself, I am the son of this father and am so many years old. These are my dear friends, and this is my pleasant home. I was born and became a boy, and then grew up to this age. There are all my friends, and in the same course of their lives. Thus, the compact density of the sphere of his soul presents him with many other images that appear to arise in it, as in some part of the world. But they are neither rise nor remain in the soul itself, which is as transparent as empty air. They appear to consciousness like a vision seen in a dream. A person dreaming remains in one place but sees all manners of things in different places. Everything in the other world appears equally real, just like in his dream. Again, whatever is seen in the other world, the same occurs to man in their present states also. The unreality of the world of dreaming and the reality of this physical world are alike. Just like there is no difference among the waves of the same sea water, so the produced visible creation is the same as the unproduced intellectual world, both of which are equally indestructible. But in reality, the appearance is nothing but a reflection of the consciousness, which, apart from the intelligible spirit, is merely an empty void. Although presided over by the intelligible spirit, creation itself is a mere void, its only substance being the intelligible soul, like water is to waves. waves, though formed of water, are themselves as unreal as the horns of hares. Their appearance as natural objects is altogether false. Therefore, there being no visible object in reality, how can the observer have any idea of materiality which loses its delusion at the moment of his death? After the visible outer world has disappeared from sight, the soul in its inner world of the mind reflects on its memories of creation according to the proper time and place of everything. It remembers its birth in its parents, its age and its residence, with its learning and all other pursuits in their exact manner and order. It thinks of its friends and servants and of the success and failure of its attempts. The uncreated and incorporeal soul, in its intellectual form, reflects on the events of its created and corporeal state. However, it doesn't remain in this state for long. Soon after death, it enters a new body to which the properties of the mind and senses are added afterwards in their proper times. It then becomes a baby, finds a new father and mother, and begins to grow. Thus, whether one may perceive it or not, it is all the product of his former memories. Then, upon waking from this state of trance, like a fruit from the cell of a flower, it comes to find that a single moment appeared to it as the period of an age. It was in this way that in times past King Harishchandra thought one night to be of 12 years. One day seems like a year to those who are separated from their beloved objects. Again, it is all false. Whether the birth or death of someone in his dream, or being born and recognizing a father in infancy, or a hungry man imagining he is dying on dainty food. So, who would believe a satisfied man after eating who says he is starving, or one who declares that he is an eyewitness of something he had not seen, or an empty space full of people, and that someone found lost treasure in his dream? But this visible world rests in the invisible Spirit of God. Like the property of pungency resides in the particles of the pepper seed, and like the painted pictures on a column. But where are the open and clear sighted eyes to perceive this? The vision of Leela, called Samadhi in Yoga, and clairvoyance of spiritualism, was the abstract meditation of her Lord in her memory that presented her with a full view of everything imprinted on it. Memory is taken from the whole consciousness, which is identified with God, in whose essence the images of all things are said to be eternally present. So, with this chapter 20 ends. We will take chapter 21 tomorrow with the grace of Lord Ram. Until then, I say Shivoham to all my friends. Shivoham.